Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we are going to be unpacking this whole passport bros phenomenon, Western men seeking partners abroad, specifically in the Philippines. I've got a really great article called Why Passport Bros Are Turning to Filipinas for True Connections, and a Reddit poll from wealthylovewell.com, which adds like a really interesting layer to the whole conversation. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out wealthylovewell.com. They've got a ton of great blogs and offers designed to help you save money on your dating and wellness journey.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating trend, and the sources you found really do offer a really unique perspective into what's driving it.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Who are these passport bros? The article describes them as typically middle-aged Western men, often professionals or entrepreneurs, who are for various reasons, dissatisfied with the dating scene in their home countries.
And what's so interesting is it's not like there's just one single reason that these guys are, they're all kind of looking for something different. The article highlights three guys, Alex, Jake, and Mike, each with a different story, but they're all led to the Philippines.
Okay, so let's hear about them. Alex was a successful engineer. His life gets turned upside down after a workplace accident leads to a divorce, and he's kind of left feeling lost and alone. Jake was a former executive laid off during COVID lockdowns, and that actually leads to the end of his marriage. And then Mike, who owns his own business, felt constantly criticized and belittled by his wife, and ultimately decided to seek a fresh start. So three pretty different stories, right?
Yeah, and you can really see how all of these different experiences, although they are all unique, they share this common thread of feeling disillusioned or just let down by the relationships that they'd had back home.
Yeah, and so they're all drawn to the Philippines for kind of similar reasons, right? They're looking for partners who embody what they consider to be traditional values, respect for men,
Right.
family orientation, and a certain level of agreeableness that they say is missing from Western women.
And it's interesting how the article points to agreeableness as this key factor. Filipinas actually scored 4.5 out of 5 on an agreeableness scale, which kind of paints this really specific picture of the type of partner that these men are looking for.
So what is it about Filipina culture that seems to resonate so strongly with these men?
Well, the article really focuses on the strong emphasis on family and this deep respect for men. These values, which are often seen as more traditional, seem to offer a sense of stability and comfort that these men find really appealing.
And you also have the more practical aspect of a shared language. A lot of Filipinos speak English fluently, so it removes a major barrier that you might typically encounter in relationships with people from different countries.
Yeah, for sure. And that ease of communication can help foster deeper understanding and connection, which is really important when you're trying to build a relationship.
Now, before we get too far, I have to mention this Reddit poll conducted by wealthylovewell.com. It's about divorced men dating Filipinas. It sparked some really interesting conversations, and we highly recommend checking it out. The link is in the show notes.
What I find so interesting about that poll is how it really reflects the diverse range of opinions and experiences that people have surrounding this topic. It's a reminder that these trends are never black and white. There's always different perspectives that you have to consider.
And speaking of nuances, the article also dives into some of the benefits and challenges these men might encounter when dating Filipinas.
Yeah, and we'll unpack those right after a quick word from our sponsor.
Okay, so we've talked about who these passport bros are and what draws them to the Philippines. But like any relationship, there's going to be hurdles to overcome. What are some of the benefits and challenges that stand out to you?
Well, the article mentions that the shared values are a really big thing for a lot of these guys. They find that sense of stability and comfort in the traditional values that are often associated with Filipinas, something that they feel is missing from the dating scene back home.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like they're looking for that connection based on a shared understanding of how relationships should work.
Exactly. And then you also have the fact that English is widely spoken in the Philippines. It makes it so much easier to build that connection when you don't have a language barrier.
Right. Communication is key in any relationship.
Yeah.
And having that shared language can really make a difference. But even with shared values and easy communication, I imagine there's still potential for cultural misunderstandings.
Oh, totally. The article points out that navigating cultural nuances can be tricky. Something that might be considered polite or appropriate in one culture could be totally different in another. It's definitely a learning curve.
For sure. And let's not forget about the logistics. I mean, long-distance relationships are pretty common in this scenario, which can be tough on any couple.
Right. Maintaining a strong connection across time zones and physical distance takes a lot of effort and commitment from both people. open communication, trust, and really just having that shared vision for the future are essential.
And the article also mentions that family dynamics are really important in Filipino culture.
Yes, family is everything in the Philippines. For these men, building strong relationships with their partner's family is crucial. It shows that you respect their culture, and it helps with the overall success of the relationship.
So it sounds like there's this mix of potential benefits, like shared values, communication, that strong sense of family, but also some real challenges like cultural differences, long distance, navigating family dynamics. It's definitely not a simple situation.
It really highlights how important it is to go into these relationships with a realistic understanding of both the good and the bad.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the wealthylovewell.com poll on Reddit about divorced men dating Filipinas. The results were really interesting. A lot of people said that they were really supportive of these relationships.
It's so interesting to see how that poll reflects this growing acceptance of diverse relationship models. It really challenges those traditional norms and shows how love and partnership are evolving in the 21st century.
Yeah, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're intrigued by this idea of finding a partner in the Philippines. What advice does the article offer for doing this successfully?
Well, it emphasizes that understanding Filipino culture is really the most important thing. It's not just about learning a few phrases, it's about really understanding the values, traditions, and just the little nuances of the culture.
And that goes hand in hand with the importance of communication.
Definitely, open, honest, and respectful dialogue is so important for any relationship, especially one that involves different cultures.
And I imagine patience is key too, especially when it comes to those family dynamics that we talked about.
For sure, Filipino families are usually very close-knit. It's important to approach those relationships with sensitivity and understanding. It takes time to build trust and rapport.
Yeah. The article also had some interesting insights about grooming and hygiene. Apparently, it's a big factor for Filipinas who tend to appreciate partners who are clean-shaven and well-groomed.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that sometimes those little details can actually play a huge role in attraction and compatibility. Being mindful of cultural norms and expectations can go a long way.
We've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one more important thing we need to address before we wrap things up. It's something that goes beyond passport bros and Filipinas, and it really touches on the core of what it means to build relationships across cultures.
You're talking about the power dynamics, right?
Exactly. When we look at any relationship that crosses cultural and often socioeconomic lines, we need to ask ourselves, are there some built-in power imbalances?
Yeah.
Are these connections really about finding a genuine connection? Or are there other things going on that could lead to exploitation or inequality?
That's such an important question, and it's something that we're going to dive into in the final part of our deep dive. But before we do that, don't forget to like and subscribe. And for more deep dives into relationships, be sure to visit wealthylovewell.com.
We've been talking about passport bros and their quest to find love in the Philippines. But as we wrap up our deep dive, we have to address the elephant in the room. This whole question of power dynamics.
Yeah, it's something that we can't ignore. When you're dealing with relationships that cross these cultural lines and often socioeconomic lines, you have to look at, are we on an even playing field here?
Right, because the article even mentions that some Filipinas might be drawn to Western men because of their, perceived financial stability. And on the flip side, some men might be seeking out partners who are more traditional and, maybe more willing to kind of conform to their expectations.
And that's where it gets really complicated, right? It's easy to fall into these generalizations, but the reality is every relationship is different, and how the power dynamics play out really depends on the individuals involved and their circumstances.
So how can someone try to navigate this and make sure that they're entering into a relationship that's based on mutual respect and equality?
I think awareness is a big part of it. Going into it with your eyes open, recognizing that these imbalances might exist is a good first step. And it's about being honest with yourself about your own motivations. Why are you doing this? Are you genuinely seeking a connection, or are there some maybe less healthy desires at play, like a need for control or dominance?
And it comes down to communication too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Open and honest communication with your partner, making sure that you both feel safe to express your needs and your concerns.
Absolutely. Communication is the foundation of any healthy relationship. It lets you address issues as they come up. You can negotiate expectations and make sure that both partners feel heard and respected.
And it's probably important to approach the relationship with humility too, right? Being willing to learn and adapt.
For sure. You have to recognize that your partner's culture and experiences might be completely different from your own, and it's important to approach those differences with curiosity and respect.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of passport bros, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners walk away with today?
Well, I think it's important to remember that this trend is complicated. There's a mix of personal experiences, cultural expectations, and societal shifts that are all contributing to it. And it's also important to remember that we can't generalize about an entire group of people. Every relationship is unique. And finally, when you're dealing with cross-cultural relationships, go in with awareness, open communication, and a commitment to building a truly equal partnership.
I think those are all really important points. And if you're looking for more resources and guidance on navigating all the complexities of love and connection, we really encourage you to check out wealthylovewell.com. They've got tons of information, expert advice, and tailored services to support you.
Yeah, and remember, love knows no boundaries, but building a relationship that is responsible and respectful takes work. You need to be thoughtful, communicate openly, and really commit to building a strong and equitable partnership.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us for another deep dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those likes and subscribes coming.